Imagine waking up. It's minus 20 degrees outside. There's no heating, no warm jacket from a store, no hot drink waiting for you, no phone to check the forecast. Just you, the dark, and a wind that genuinely wants to kill you. How did our ancestors survive this? Not once, but for hundreds of thousands of years. Let's go back, way back. Around 100,000 years ago, Earth entered one of its coldest periods ever recorded, a full ice age. Massive glaciers stretched across Europe, Asia, and North America. Average temperatures were 10 to 15 degrees colder than today. The landscape looked nothing like it does now. Where cities stand today, there was nothing but frozen white tundra stretching as far as the eye could see. Animals either adapted, migrated, or simply died out. And humans? We were right in the middle of all of it. Small, fragile, and completely exposed. Here's the brutal truth about the human body. It is terrible at surviving extreme cold. Unlike bears, we can't hibernate. Unlike wolves, we don't have thick insulating fur. Unlike penguins, we weren't built for ice. Without any protection at all, exposure to minus 15 degrees can kill a human being in under 2 hours. You lose feeling in your fingers and toes first. Then your muscles start to fail. Then your brain slows down. Then it's over. Ancient humans didn't need a science textbook to understand this. They learned it the hard way, watching it happen. To animals, to strangers, probably to people they knew. So what did they do? The first answer was already walking around outside. Animals. Ancient humans had been hunting for hundreds of thousands of years, but in winter, that hunting became absolutely critical. They targeted large mammals, woolly mammoths, reindeer, musk oxen, woolly rhinos, bison, enormous creatures with thick insulating fat and dense fur coats that were perfectly designed by nature to survive the cold. And here's where ancient humans showed their first real flash of genius. They didn't just eat these animals. They used every single part of them. The hides were stripped from the carcasses and scraped clean using sharp stone tools. Then, using needles made from bone, thin, sharp, precise, they stitched the furs together into fitted, layered clothing. Not just a pelt thrown over the shoulders. Actual engineered garments. Layered tunics, trousers, boots, mittens, hoods, all sewn to fit the body closely so warm air was trapped against the skin. Modern researchers have actually recreated these garments following the same methods, and the results were shocking. Ancient fur clothing performs comparably to high-end modern cold weather gear. These weren't primitive people fumbling around. These were expert craftspeople solving an engineering problem with the materials they had. But clothing alone wasn't enough. Because clothing keeps your body heat in, it doesn't generate new warmth. For that, you needed fire. Humans have been using fire for at least 400,000 years. But managing fire in winter was a completely different challenge. First, you needed fuel, dry wood or bone, which was extremely hard to find buried under snow and ice. You had to plan ahead, collecting and storing fuel before winter hit. Then you needed to light it, using friction, striking flint, or carrying embers from a previous fire carefully protected in a clay pot or wrapped in slow-burning fungus. And then, the hardest part, you needed to keep it alive. Wind is fire's worst enemy. A strong gust can kill a flame in seconds. Someone had to tend the fire through the night. Every night. Because a fire that died while everyone slept wasn't just a problem. It was potentially a death sentence for everyone in that shelter. And that word, shelter, brings us to the next piece of the puzzle. Fire only works if you have somewhere to contain the heat. Out in the open, wind strips warmth away instantly. You need walls, a roof, somewhere to trap the warmth and hold it. In forested regions, Ancient humans built lean-tos from branches, bark, and leaves. Simple but effective windbreaks. But on the open treeless tundra of Eastern Europe and Siberia, where there were no trees for hundreds of miles, they had to get creative. So they used mammoth bones. Archaeologists have excavated dozens of these structures across Ukraine and Russia, some dating back 25,000 years. The builders used the massive curved bones of mammoths, skulls, jawbones, leg bones, tusks, as the structural frame of a dome. Then they covered the outside with layers of hides, moss, and turf, creating thick, insulating walls. These shelters could house 10 to 15 people, and inside, even in brutal external cold, a single fire could raise the interior temperature by 30 degrees or more. But here's the detail that should actually blow your mind. These shelters weren't just random piles of bones and fur. They were engineered. One of the most brilliant features was something called the cold trap doorway. Instead of a flat entrance at floor level, like every modern door you've ever walked through, the entrance was a dugout pit, a hole lower than the floor of the shelter. You had to step down into it to enter. Here's why that matters. Cold air is heavier than warm air. So when cold air flows in through the entrance, it sinks straight down into that pit and stays there. It never reaches the floor where people sleep. The warm air from the fire, being lighter, stays circulating up near the ceiling and walls. The cold is physically trapped below the living space. That is passive thermal engineering. No electricity, no modern materials. Just a deep understanding of how air behaves, built into the architecture of a shelter made from the bones of animals 25,000 years ago. Now, staying warm is only half the battle. Because you also need to eat. Winter makes food almost impossible to find. Hunting becomes far harder in deep snow. Plants completely disappear under the frost. Animals either die, migrate south, or go into hibernation. There's almost nothing left, so ancient humans had to think weeks and months ahead. During summer and autumn, when food was abundant, they stockpiled aggressively. They smoked meat over fires to preserve it. The smoke kills bacteria and dries the meat so it lasts for months. They dried berries, roots, and plants. They rendered animal fat and stored it. Groups living on permafrost used the permanently frozen ground outside as a natural freezer, burying food caches that stayed preserved all winter long. Finding evidence of this behavior is one of the things that most excites archaeologists. It tells us that these humans weren't just reacting to problems. They were anticipating them, thinking ahead, planning. That is a cognitive leap that separates surviving one winter from surviving 1,000 generations of them. And the final piece of the puzzle, perhaps the most important one, was also the simplest. Each other. Humans are not physically impressive animals. We're not the fastest, not the strongest, not the best insulated. But we are, without any close competition, the best cooperators on the planet. And in the Ice Age, that cooperation was everything. Groups of 20 to 30 people working together could do things no individual could. Multiple hunters could coordinate to drive large animals into traps or over cliffs. Multiple builders could raise a shelter in a day that one person couldn't build in a week. Fire could be tended in shifts, so it never went out. The elderly who could no longer hunt could teach, repair clothing, prepare food, and pass on knowledge accumulated over a lifetime. A lone human in the Ice Age had almost no chance of surviving a serious winter. But a coordinated group? Suddenly the odds shift dramatically. Winter becomes something you can plan for, prepare for, outlast, together. And this is the moment repeated across thousands of winters, in hundreds of locations, across the entire inhabited world where human cooperation stopped being convenient and became the single most important survival tool our species has ever developed. So, how did ancient humans survive deadly winters? Not through luck. Not through physical toughness. They survived because they were smart. They observed the natural world and learned its rules. They solved problems with whatever materials were within reach. They built things: clothing, shelters, food stores that shouldn't have worked but absolutely did. And they built communities that turned individual weakness into collective strength. Every winter they survived was a quiet miracle of human ingenuity. A chain of clever decisions made by people with no books, no schools, no internet, just sharp minds, skilled hands, and each other. That chain leads unbroken directly to you. So next time you're cold, maybe take a second to think about what it actually cost for your ancestors to get you here, and then absolutely turn the heating on. You've earned it.